Hello, students. Good evening. This is the summary of Sons and Lovers. So, let us start the summary. Gertrude, soon to be Mrs. Morrel, and she meets in the beginning, she meets with Mr. Morrel, right, in a country dance. So, who is Gertrude? Gertrude is an intelligent young woman from middle class English family meets a young miner. Mr. Morrel is miner and they meet at a country dance. Although Gertrude has a religious and ascetic temperament, she has a religious and ascetic temperament. She is attracted to Walter Morrel, vigorous nature, and thinks he is very handsome when she sees him dance at the party. So, what she thinks that Walter Morrel is the vigorous nature, but when she meets with Gertrude meets with Walter Morrel, then she thinks that he is handsome and she gets attracted with from Walter Morrel. Right now, the pair are married a few months later, and soon Mrs. Morrel becomes pregnant. So then they meet and then they are married now. And after few months, Mrs. Morrel, Gertrude becomes Mrs. Morrel now, and she becomes pregnant soon. Now, the first few months of their marriage are happy, but Mrs. Morrel finds that she cannot really talk to her husband, and that despite their initial attraction, the couple have little in common. And very soon, Mrs. Morrel realizes that she made mistake and she cannot talk even much with Mr. Morrel. And now she finds that there is little in common between them. And she discovers that Walter is not as wealthy as she believed. After marriage, she comes to know that Walter is not wealthy as she believed, and that they do not own the house. Even Walter does not have his own house they live in. She thinks that in the house Walter lives, that belongs to Walter. But later, after marriage, she comes to know that that house does not belong to Walter, but it rather rent it from Walter's mother, and that is from Walter's mother. So now she dislikes life in the mining community and does not get along with other women who find her haughty and superior. And she does not like mining people, right? They're different kind of mentality. So she cannot mix with them, and that's why she does not go outside. She does not mingle up with mining community, and that is why that's a she is uh, people suppose that she is haughty and superior. She thinks that I cannot mix with them because she comes from educated family, good family, sophisticated family. That's why she does not mix with such mining people. Now Mrs. Morrill gives in the meanwhile she gives birth to a son who she names William. So, first child, she gives birth a son whose name she keeps his name William, and she adores him immensely. So, she is busy with her son and she loves him like anything. Although she and Mr. Morrill are still friendly with each other. Now, as son, she becomes mother. So now Mrs. Morrill does not have even much talking terms with Mr. Morrill. They talk rarely, right? So they are still friendly, but uh, friendly terms, right? She has lost interest in him, and the rift between them widens, and their relations, right, that rift, that gap between Mr. and Mrs. Morrill widens after the birth of child. Now one morning, when William is a toddler, when William is a infant, small baby, Mrs. Morrill comes downstairs and finds that Mr. Morrill has cut all the boys' hair off. So then, when William was very young, he was toddler. So then, Mrs. Morrill, she comes downstairs and she finds she was in upstairs, and when she comes downstairs, she finds that Mr. Morrill has cut all all the boys' hair off, and he cuts boys' hair. Mrs. Morrill is horrified, and this action drives a wedge between her and her husband. Now Mrs. Morrill gets annoyed, and she she is she exasperated, and she shows her anger to Mr. Morrill. Now she focuses all her love and her son and delights in planning for his future and watching him grow up. Now she does not leave her child alone, and her whole focus is on her first son, first baby, and she delights in planning for his future and watching him grow up. Now she enjoys his growth, his development, William's development. Now Mrs. Morrill has a second child, Annie, and then gets pregnant with third. And very soon she becomes Annie's mother, second child. And after Annie's, very soon, the third child. Now, one day, not long before her due date, a fair comes to town, and Mrs. Morrill reluctantly goes along to please William. So that she is not interested, but then there is a fair in her town. So she goes because they live outside, right? So that there is a fair comes to town, and Mrs. Morrill reluctantly, she does not want to go, but still she goes to make William happy, and she takes William to the fair. Who cannot enjoy the fair without her? So that is why she takes her baby to the fair. While she is there, Mrs. Morrill sees that Mr. Morrill, who has taken to drinking frequently, is in the beer tent, and she is not surprised when he returns home drunk that evening. So what she finds that Mr. Morrill he has taken to drink frequently. He has taken to drinking frequently and is in the beer tent. She is not, she knows that he will he will return. When he returns home, he will be drunk. A few weeks later, there is a public holiday, and Mr. Morrill uses this time to go out drinking with his friend Jerry Purdy. So then there is one holiday. Holiday comes, and Mr. Morrill goes outside along with his friend Mr. Jerry Purdy, whom Mrs. Morrill cannot stand, who is misogynist. So Mrs. because who who has relationships with so many females, and that is why Mrs. Morrill does not like Jerry Purdy. Now, but Mr. Morrill goes with Jerry Purdy for drinking. When Mr. Morrill comes back that night, he is very drunk, and the couple fight. And when he comes back, he is drunk, and then they have fight. Mr. Morrill locks Mrs. Morrill out of the house, and she calms herself down by looking at the moon and flowers in her garden. So, Mr. Morrill locks Mrs. Morrill out of the house, but Mrs. Morrill, anyhow, she passes her time after seeing moon and flowers in her garden. Anyhow, she tries to make herself happy. When she returns, Mr. Morrill lets her back in but goes to bed without talking to her. And she comes back after some time, so Mr. Morrill does not talk to him and he goes to bed. He does not talk with Mrs. Morrill. Mr. Morrill gives Mrs. Morrill gives birth to another boy. One night, shortly after the birth, when she has taken the children out of the house to avoid Mr. Morrill's temper, she sits and watches the sunset on a nearby hill and decides to name the baby Paul. So that next, see William, then Annie, and then Paul. So this is the third child. So one day she gives a baby birth to a baby boy, and then one night she takes all children to out of the house to avoid Mr. Morrill's temper, and she sits and watches sunset, and then she avoids Mr. Morrill because Mr. Morrill is very short tempered person. So that is why she takes all children, and she enjoys sunsets and all nearby hills and decides to name the baby Paul. So she decides that she will call third child Paul. As she looks down at the little infant, she is overcome with guilt and sadness. So that Mr. That's a Paul is very young, right? Little infant. So she feels guilt and sadness. She thinks that the baby looks sad because she did not want him while she was pregnant. Actually, when she comes to know that she's pregnant, third time pregnant, she does not want to have this baby. And but then Paul comes in this world. So when she sees he is in her lap. So she is sad, and she thinks that baby is also sad because baby thinks that My mother does not want me to come on this world. So Paul grow, however, that time passes, then Paul grows into a serious and thoughtful child. But then, because she was not happy, and that's why she's thinking that Paul, because of this attitude, Paul is a very serious and thoughtful child. Now, William, meanwhile, is very active and charming. Mrs. Morrel gives birth to a third son, Arthur. And now Mrs. Morrel once again she is pregnant and she gives one more son, Arthur. So this way, how many children are there? That's a William, right? William, son, Annie daughter, then Paul, son, and Arthur, son. So that's three son and one daughter. One, two, three son and one daughter. Okay. Now, William meanwhile is very active and charming. Mrs. Morrel gives birth to a third son, Arthur, whom Mr. Morrel is instantly fond of. Mr. Morrel loves Arthur a lot because he's youngest one. And when William is old enough, he gets a job as a clerk and is very successful and well liked. So William is a young boy and he gets a job and he's a successful and he's well liked. He's a charming, attractive, right? So he is offered a position in London and gleefully accepts. So Mr. William now he's a young boy and he gets job in London and he gets position in London. So he accepts the job. Although Mrs. Morrel is proud of William, she is devastated to see him leave home. But she is very happy. Mrs. Morrel is very happy, but at the same time, she is very sad because William has to leave the home. At first, William visits home a lot and sends money to his family. So, William goes to London, joins the job, but for some time in the beginning, he visits to home frequently, but and sends money as well. However, as time goes on, he begins to get caught up in city life and spends his money on his fiancée Lily, Losa, Loisa Lily, right? But by the time as time passes, he is busy in city life and he spends money for himself and he has love affair with Lily. Now, what happened? That's a William brings the young woman home to meet his family, and they are disappointed to find that she acts superior to them and treats them like her servant. So then he brings Lily to home. But what happened? Mr. William brings Lily at home to his home, but he is very much disappointed to find that the Lily does not behave, and she thinks that she is superior to other family members, and then she treats them like her servants. As their relationship goes on, William comes to despise his fiancée, but he will not end the engagement. So that that relation could not go longer because William comes to despise his fiancée. And then finally, he will not end the engagement. Mrs. Morrel is shocked and depressed when, during another visit, William is openly cruel to Louisa. So now Mrs. Morrel is shocked because this time he has visited alone, and he is uh, not happy. Not long after this, William contracts pneumonia and dies. And then William is openly cruel to Louisa, and then after some time, he succumbs with pneumonia and he dies, leaving Mrs. Morrel heartbroken. Now, Mrs. Morrel, you can understand she is very much sad because she has lost her dearest son. Now, main story starts. Paul, meanwhile, grows into an intelligent young man and takes a job as a clerk in Nottingham. So now Paul is also younger boy and he grows up, and he's intelligent young man, takes a job as a clerk like William. He also takes a job but in the city, that's a Nottingham. So he takes a job. He enjoys the work and gets along well with his colleagues. But the long hours take a toll on his health. He enjoys the job and he is very good his colleagues, but the long hours take a toll in his health. But that's a very tedious job. He is very much busy. He has to spend much time for the job, and that's why uh, here his health becomes deteriorated. So, Mrs. Morrel continues to grieve for William and Paul, who is also very close to his mother and is desperate to bring her out of herself and to win her attention back. So what happened? That's a Paul is sick in the beginning, and then here it is not discussed. But then when William dies, then mother is able to see Paul, and Paul is suffering from tuberculosis, and that is why now mother is very much possessive with to uh, Paul, because she knows that if I don't pay attention, I may lose my another son, and that is why. So now they are very much attached with one another. Who? Paul and mother. So here, not only Paul but mother, not only mother but is Paul is also close to his mother, and he is desperate to bring her out of herself and to win her attention back, so that Paul always takes care of mother. Now when Paul is stuck down with pneumonia, Mrs. Morrel, sorry, not tuberculosis but pneumonia, so Mrs. Morrel realizes to her horror that she has neglected him. She does everything in her power to nurse him back to health, so that when he is succumb with pneumonia, Paul, so mother, Mrs. Morrel takes care of Paul like anything, and this way Paul recovers well, and from then on Mrs. Morrel is committed to him and pins all her hopes for future on him. And now she decides to take care of Paul, and then she does so. Now during his time of work after his illness, Paul begins to visit a nearby farm owned by Mr. Livers. So when Paul's his time off work after his illness, now he recovered, and he used to visit to nearby farm which was owned by Mr. Levers. So he strikes up an unusual friendship with the Lever's daughter Miriam. So he falls in love with Miriam, daughter of Mr. Levers, who is very timid, religious, and intellectual. So Miriam is very timid and intellectual, right? Mrs. Morrill dislikes her and feels that she is bed for Paul. Mrs. Morrill does not like Miriam, and she thinks that she is not suitable for my boy Paul. Although Paul and Miriam get along well, there is a physical awkwardness between them. They like each other. Who? Paul and Miriam. They are both immature and neither understands that they are attracted to each other. But they love each other, they are attracted to each other. Mrs. Morrill watches their relationship closely and wishes that Paul would break things off. So here Mrs. Morrill thinks negatively. She interferes and she thinks that Paul should break this relation. She is jealous of the time he spends with Miriam. This is the biggest problem. Paul returns to his job at the factory after a while, but his hours are shorter and he has more time to work on his painting, which is his real interest. So now Paul goes back to factory, starts working, and but his hours are shorter. This time his hours are not too much, so he spends his quality time in painting, right? Which is his real interest. He's a painter. Now, during this time, Miriam realizes that she is in love with Paul, but she feels ashamed of his physical attraction because it clashes with her religious views. She's a religious girl, Miriam. So she thinks for physical relationship with Mr. Paul, but then she feels shy, and that's why she could not, because it does not match with her religious views. So Miriam does not tell Paul about her feelings. The family goes on holiday to the seaside and Miriam goes with them. So one day, Paul Morrill family goes out in the holiday to the seaside and Miriam also goes with them. Paul spends most of his time with Mrs. Morrill, however, and only sees Miriam in the evenings. And Paul maximum time he spends with his mother, and Miriam only sees Miriam in the evening, and in the evening he spends time with Miriam. Now, around this time, Paul wins a prize for his painting in a Nottingham exhibition. So he wins the prize in the painting, and one night he meets Miriam at the exhibition along with a young woman called Clara Devs. So in the exhibition one night he meets Miriam's friend Clara Devs. Now Clara is a married to a man named Baxter. So Clara is a married woman and her husband's name is Baxter, and who works in the same factory. Baxter and Paul, they work in a same factory. but the pair have separated. But Clara lives separately, uh, and Baxter lives alone, right? They are separated. Baxter and Clara are separated now. Paul thinks Clara is snooty and believes she is man hater because she is involved with the suffragettes. So Paul thinks that Clara is a lady, kind of lady who does not, who needs freedom, who does not like man. This way. He also dislikes Baxter, who was rude to him on his first day at the factory. So, as he comes to know, who Paul comes to know that, oh, Baxter is your husband. Clara's husband is Baxter. So, he remembers that when he joins the factory, very first day, he met uh, Baxter, and Baxter was very rude to Paul in the factory. Now, Miriam and Paul continue their platonic relationship. So, here their relationship is going on, Miriam and Paul, but it puts a strain on them as they both wish to become a couple but do not know how to do so. Both are immature, and then both uh, they don't know how to move in their life, and they are not taking decision. Now Paul resents Miriam because he feels she is too spiritual, and that this hampers him from behaving physically or being ordinary with her. So Paul feels problem with Miriam because Miriam is very religious lady, and that's why Paul does not feel free to talk with Miriam, and he needs physical satisfaction and all, but that he could not fulfill his physical needs with Miriam. Miriam is hurt and confused, but she continues to maintain that she is good for moral and that he belongs to her. Now, one night when Paul is out with Miriam, Mrs. Morrill is taken ill, right? So that relation is still, they are outside, who, Paul and Miriam. But then Mrs. Morrill becomes ill, and when Paul returns, Annie berates him for neglecting his mother. So when he comes back to home, then Annie, uh, his sister, elder sister, she berates, she scolds Paul for neglecting his mother. Now, Paul tries to break things off with Miriam, but he still visits the farm often because he is friend with her brother Edgar. Ab Edgar, Edgar is his friend, right? So that uh, Paul decides when he is scolded by his elder sister Annie, so he decides not to visit to Miriam, but still he visits because Miriam's brother Eger is Paul's good friend, right? So he used to visit to Miriam's home, right? But one afternoon, Paul is invited to Miriam's house to have tea with Clara Devs. So one day, Paul is invited by Miriam's to have tea with Clara Devs. Although Paul still dislikes Clara, he finds her impressive and attractive. So till here, Paul first time, like they meet because he knows that Baxter is Clara's husband, and Baxter is not good to Paul. He misbehaved with Paul. So that is why he does not like even Clara. But now they meet and he finds Clara is impressive and attractive. Not long after this, Paul delivers a parcel to Clara's house, which is near the factory where he works. He learns that she lives with her mother, Mrs. Redford. So, Clara lives with her mother, Mrs. Redford, and that she is desperately unhappy. Paul gets Clara a job in the factory but still finds her haughty and reserved at work. So that she gets job and but still she is haughty and reserved. Her presence irritates him and he goes out of his way to annoy her. So he gets irritated, and during the summer, Paul and Miriam get engaged. Now, in the summer, they get engaged, but Paul breaks off the engagement several weeks later. He strikes up a relationship with Clara, but continues to see Miriam often. So now he has relationship with Clara, but he continues to see Miriam often. Now Baxter Devs finds out about Paul and Clara. When Baxter comes to know uh, that my wife is in relationship with Paul, and Baxter and Paul get into a fight in a pub. So they have fight in a pub. Now Baxter later attacks Paul in the dark. So he attacks uh, to Paul in the dark while he is walking back from Clara's house when he is coming from Clara's house. Paul is not seriously hurt and feels a strange bond with Baxter after this incident. But then that's a it's a reverse effect because Paul thinks that how Baxter is how much possessive with his wife and he's not seriously hurt. So during this period, Mrs. Moral health begins to decline, and while she is on holiday in Sheffield, staying with Annie, she falls ill and is diagnosed with cancer. In the meanwhile, there's very bad news that Mrs. Morrill is diagnosed with cancer while she's living with Annie. And Paul is horrified at the thought that his mother may die. He never thinks, he never accepts this truth, but he stays in Sheffield to nurse her, and while he is there, learns that Baxter is in hospital nearby recovering from typhoid. So he takes care to his mother in the hospital, and in the same hospital Baxter is hospitalized because of typhoid. So Paul goes to visit him and the two men become friends. Now they become friends, and after a few weeks Mrs. Morrill is able to travel home, but it is understood by everyone that she will not live very long. She comes back at home, but that's a open uh, story, or that's open that she will not be uh, uh, be alive for long, right? And although Paul is still in contrast in contact with both Miriam and Clara, but now Paul's dilemma is that he visits to Miriam and Clara as well. He finds that he no longer cares for them, and he dedicates all his time to caring for his mother. So he thinks that I'm not able to take care of Miriam and Clara, and both are being neglected. So now I have to give my full attention to my mother, and he decides to take care his mother full time. Now Mrs. Morrel dies gradually and painfully. Annie and Paul who care for her, and then that's a cancer. Because of cancer, she her health is deteriorated day by day, and then Paul and Annie decide that who care for her can hardly bear the strain, and then Annie and Paul who care for her can hardly bear the strain, and they are not able to see that their mother's pain. Finally, after Mrs. Morrel has grown unbearably ill, Paul poisons her with the painkillers he has been given by the doctor, and he gives painkillers to mother, and she is buried alongside William, and he gives painkillers and mother dies, and Paul gives painkillers, right, deliberately, so that mother should be relaxed, right, rest in peace, and she is buried alongside William. And Mr. Morrel can no longer bear to live in the house that he shared with his wife. Now, Mr. Morrel is very much upset, and he's not uh, prepared to live the same house where they spend a long time, and he spend much time with his wife and children. So he and Paul move out and take separate lodgings in Nottingham, and they move to Nottingham. And not long after Mrs. Morrel's death, Paul goes on a trip to the seaside with Baxter and invites Clara to join them. And Paul does a very good job. He calls Clara and Baxter, and now they are united. He has lost all interest in her because he has no interest in Clara now, and life and in life generally. Since his mother's death, he is suicidal with grief, and he all like love affair and feelings are flown away, and he is very much suicidal, right, with grief of his mother's death. He believes that Clara wishes to reconcile with Baxter and arranges things so that he leaves them together in the cottage. So he leaves them alone in the cottage, and Clara is angry with Paul for manipulating her, but she does forgive Baxter's and agrees to return to him as his wife, and now they are united. Clara convinced by Baxter, and now they are united. And for a long time after this, Paul wishes to die and feels he has no connection with life, and he thinks that life is useless. And one night he sees Miriam outside church and invites her back to his house. So one night he finds Miriam outside church, and he invites Miriam to come to his house. Miriam is sad to see that he has deteriorated and suggests that they get married. So she suggests to get married, but Paul rejects her, and Miriam decides that she will never see him again, because now Miriam is fed up. She proposes for marriage as uh, Paul refuses. She decides she will never see Paul. And after she has gone, Paul catches a car out into the country and walks across the field in the dark. And he catches a taxi and he walks into the dark and he calls out to his mother and wishes to end his life so he can be with her mother, with his mother. And he is determined not to die, and he thinks that I should not die. However, and knows he cannot kill himself. He knows that my father is there. He cannot kill himself. Miserable yet resolute, Paul walks back across the dark fields in the direction of the town. And finally, he goes to the town and in a dark world where he's all alone in the world. Thank you. Good night.